Um, so as I said, I would like to talk about how we make, in Flanders, we make labor market information accessible for all to use. And I would like to elaborate as well on the advantages and possible drawbacks of being very open with regard to our labor market information. Maybe to present myself, Belgium is this small country wedged in between Germany, France, the United Kingdom, and the Netherlands. And if we look in more detail at Belgium, Flanders is the northern part of Belgium, the Dutch-speaking part of Belgium. This tool we will share with the public in about a month. Allows us to benchmark ourselves with all the other European countries. So as you can see here, the yellow bar is Flanders. If we look at our unemployment rate, we're actually we're not doing too bad with regard to the other European countries. If we look at another number, for example, the employment rate of, say, 25 to 45 years old, you'll see as well that Flanders is amongst the top countries in Europe with regard to employment rate. And we like to benchmark ourselves with countries like Germany, Austria, Scandinavian countries, the Netherlands. But still, our labor market has some of its very particular challenges as well. For example, if we just look at this employment rate for those aged 55 and up, you'll see that we're not at the top of the chart anymore, that we've sunk below the European average. If we look at other similar statistics, for example, let's take the employment rate of those born outside of the European Union, you'll see we have dropped, for those countries where we have statistics on this data, we have dropped to the bottom of the list, and there's absolutely nothing to be proud about here for Belgium nor Flanders. It's a typical situation in Flanders where we're doing rather well. We have a problem fitting in all those people who don't fit the ideal picture of our employers. So I could give you another example. If you look more closely at the map of Flanders, let's focus on the local details. This is the map of Flanders, and I focused on the city of Antwerp. If I go to the unemployment rate, the darker colors are the local communities with the highest unemployment rates. You'll see that actually Antwerp is, with 60.1%, the city with the highest unemployment rate of entire Flanders. This is a bit weird, since Antwerp is one of the biggest harbors in Europe and one of the largest economic, largest area where there's a lot of vacancies to be found in Belgium. And most people living in these areas surrounding Antwerp are actually working in Antwerp. But the people living in Antwerp, because they are mostly unskilled, didn't reach a secondary degree, many people of foreign descent as well, don't manage to find a job in their own city, even though there's a lot of jobs to be found there. So it's one of the reasons why the OECD labeled us a few years ago as one of the countries with the highest mismatch between labor market supply and labor market demand in the world. And as you can see from these statistics, they were right saying so. If you look at the evolution of unemployment, we see that the map is mostly green. This means that actually unemployment rates are decreasing right now. So we're doing better than the previous years. If we focus on specific target groups, for example, let's take the long-term unemployed, you'll see that the map colors red, which means that long-term unemployed are still it's still long-term unemployment is still increasing, which is actually normal for a period when things turn for the better. The long-term unemployed are always the last ones to benefit from better economic circumstances. But I'm not going to talk too much here about Flanders' labor market, Flanders' economy. We are too small on a worldwide scale to be of much interest. What I would like to talk to you about is the way we share our data with the public. This is actually our main tool for everyone free to use on the internet, where they can explore our data at their own leisure. And you could go a lot further than these basic maps and charts. For example, if you would like to make a historical study, let's say, since the year 2000, on, let's say, youngsters without a secondary degree, everyone can access those kind of data at just a few clicks and explore our unemployment databases and vacancy databases at their own leisure. This tool contains over 410 million data records, and a similar tool has been around for about 10 years now. Of course, 10 years ago we couldn't build a tool like this. It didn't look the part, and we didn't have the moving graphs and the charts and stuff like that. But we have a history of sharing the most important of our unemployment databases as well as our vacancy databases with the public. And we have some specific reasons to do so. Why are we sharing all of our treasures or our databases with the public? Actually, we would like to allow everyone who needs to make decisions with regard to the labor market. It can be a local government who wants to design a local labor market policy. It can be individuals who want to make personal choices with regard to the labor market. Think about the choice of a study or a career change. We would like all those people to have all data readily accessible for them and easy to explore, so they can make the best possible decision and they have some evidence to base their decisions on. This is quite a general tool, actually just more a tool for press, local governments, universities to explore our databases. We are building right now some new tools specifically targeted at questions for individuals with some labor market needs. Our tool we designed 10 years ago, we had the same data, the same functionalities, but not the graphs. Can also be seen as some sort of open data experiment long before there was talk about open data. Nowadays, most of the data behind this tool is real open data as well, but we don't want to limit ourselves to just releasing the raw data on the internet. We like to make these kind of digital playgrounds around our data, so everyone can use these data without having to have the necessary skills to work with real raw data. And that's what I would like to talk to you about for the upcoming big 5 minutes. I would like to share some experiences, some advantages, and maybe also some drawbacks of being very open with regard to our data, since we have quite some experience with that. And I would like to talk about 4 different topics. First of all, there's the danger of making mistakes. Many government agencies don't like to make their data open data because they know there are still quite some mistakes in their data. I would like to talk also about the use and the abuse of our data. I would like to talk about the efficiency gains, possible efficiency gains by using open data. And I would like to talk about the danger of making ourselves obsolete by throwing all our data on the internet. First thing I would like to talk about is the danger of making mistakes. As you can see today, the data we published today is the data on September 2015. On the first working day of November, the data of October 2015 will be added. This, however, means since we are each month pushing about 1 million data records into this tool, this will mean that we don't have the chance to correct every minute detail, to explore every possible number and see if there are any mistakes made there. So we do make mistakes, and they're because of these tools, these mistakes can be very visible for those who are using this tool. We make small mistakes. Just a couple of months ago, a local community discovered that one of their numbers on, I thought it was the disabled unemployed for their local community, the number has been wrong for the last 10 years since the start of this tool. Strange IT bug in the thing. Small mistake, but sometimes we make bigger mistakes as well. I remember when I was responsible for publishing the data on the vacancies, a new external database slipped into our normal vacancy database, and the people of IT had forgotten to mention to us. And we don't like to count these commercial databases. We have lots of them added to our own vacancy database. We don't want to count them into this system, because then we know we will count many vacancies many different times, because some of the vacancies are published through many different channels. But since no one warned me and I didn't see it, they were published as well, which meant a very big rise in the number of vacancies during that particular month. And the only thing we could do afterwards, since it was obvious that we had made a mistake, was retract the data, republish them, and apologize publicly. Now, are these real problems? I don't think so. No one remembers, only me, I guess, the mistakes of so many years ago. And these mistakes, if you don't make them each month, they don't affect your overall ability. They won't affect your reputation as labor market experts. Since this data is also, a lot of our data is open data or readily accessible, there's quite some use and sometimes even abuse of our data. Now the question is, do we need to be afraid of that? I don't think so. Much of the use is very interesting. There was a newspaper who used our data on school leavers and their chances to find a job for each different area of study of each individual course they might study. And they used it to build an own study advice tool for the newspaper website, which is exactly what we want to achieve through our open data, is that our data is accessible for as many people as possible and will be used by as many people as possible. There's abuse as well. A few months ago there was a commercial site advising people who wanted to buy or rent a house as well, and they gave a negative advice for some houses based on how many number of unemployed, especially how many number of unemployed of foreign descent were in that particular neighborhood at that time. We weren't too happy when we heard about that, and there was quite a public outcry because of this use of our data. But even though the discussion was, there was quite some discussion in the press because of that, no one actually questioned us and criticized us for releasing this data in the first place. All the criticism went to this commercial website. As a third point, we thought that when building a tool like this and making all of these numbers readily available and accessible to the public, we thought we could reduce the number of questions we got. Since every number can be freely explored by everyone who wants it, we thought that there would be a lot of less questions. We were actually wrong. The simple questions regarding the exact numbers disappeared mostly. But instead, because we released all this data, we got a lot of different, much harder questions to answer. Because since if you make these data accessible to the public, they won't ask you anymore about exact numbers, but they're going to ask you questions like, you know, I've noticed when I compare the data on, for example, the disabled and employed in my local community with those of the local communities and the surrounding area, and while in the other areas the number is decreasing, in my community it's increasing. Could you please explain to me why this is? So it's a much harder question to answer than just, could you tell me how many disabled and employed we have in our community? And now, for my final lesson learned, throwing all our data on the internet is not making ourselves obsolete, as some of our experts feared when we started with this. They thought no one needs to ask us about the numbers anymore. What's our purpose? What are we? What are we needed for then? But actually, they were wrong as well. Since we receive these much harder questions, which takes a lot more time to answer, it's actually an opportunity for us too, because each of these questions is an opportunity to elaborate on the messages we would like to spread, the messages we would like to be discussed in public debate. Each of those questions allows us to bring the messages our public employment services wants to tell. Since all data is out there and everyone is able to draw it, so to play with them and draw its own conclusions, the need for a neutral authority explaining what all these numbers actually mean rises as well. And we managed to become that neutral authority, and which gave us a much larger place within public debate than we were before we released these tools. This can be a challenge as well. To exploit these opportunities, our people needed to change from number crunchers into people with a very broad perspective on labor market, on all aspects of labor market, on much more topics than just unemployment rates and vacancies, to be able to answer those difficult questions. So, from our perspective, from what we learned, throwing all our data on the internet was actually a very good thing to do, because it strengthened our position as labor market experts and allowed ourselves to become more important for our public employment services, since we are an important communication channel. We have become an important communication channel for public employment service. Through our services, we can only reach so many individuals and local authorities. Through communication and public and our data, we can reach a lot more people. And building these tools, among other things, allowed us to become a unique asset for our public and employment service. A unique asset, I think we all should be. Thank you.